Hey everybody, On the Run with Beards and Dunn is back, and we actually have the Beards with us today. Beards, where in the heck? I've had to carry the load by myself the last 2 weeks.
Dunn, you did a great job, buddy, and I tell you, you know me, if something's going to happen, it's going to happen.
So fill us in if you feel, I know it's kind of, what's going on?
No, so, I don't know, a few weeks ago, I've had both my knees replaced, my left one twice, and I had this like a hard kind of a calcium knob on the top of that knee. And it didn't hurt or nothing. I didn't even go to the doc about it. It was been there for quite a while. I don't know if I smucked it on my boat or what, but one day I look and it's bleeding.
Oh.
And done. It just kept getting bigger and bigger and wider and uglier looking. And, of course, I thought, it'll go away. I put some of that little Zorba cream on it or something. Well, 2.5 weeks ago, I'm waiting for some customers on a guide trip, and I thought, I had to send the picture of that to my doc, Dr. Karen, my orthopedic guy, and he texts me right back. He goes, as soon as your guide trip is over, you get in here. So I get in there. It's on a Wednesday. Next morning, I'm at the hospital. They do surgery to go in there and do a debridement and clean it all out, and they're praying to the good Lord that the infection, I had a bad infection in my knee, hadn't got down into the artificial joint.
Right.
So he sewed it up as best he could. There's not a whole lot of skin left there to sew up, and I go back the next day after surgery and just see how I'm doing. I go back the following Monday and then see Dr. Karen, and he goes, you know what, come back on Wednesday. I go back on Wednesday, so a week ago this past Wednesday, and he looks at that thing and he goes, holy crap, that is not doing what it should. It's got all this gunky pus coming out of it. So he put me in the hospital at that moment, and they started me on heavy-duty IV or antibiotics. The next day they did surgery again, and I was in the hospital for 5.5 days.
Lord.
I was like a caged tiger in there.
I was going to say, they must anyway. Well, Beards, I'm glad, and I have seen the picture that you sent your doc. I'm trying to decide if I want to put it on our website under extras. We might have to do it with the disclaimer, like don't let small children or people with weak constitutions look at this. It was ugly, man.
It was really ugly, and so now I got home late in the day on Monday, this past Monday, and I've got this vac wound type of bandage, and there's a tube coming out of the wound, and I carry a little pack on my side here, and it pumps all this ugly junk out of there, and then I've got a pick line in my left arm, but you can't see it because it's under my sweatshirt. I have to infuse myself with these heavy-duty antibiotics 3 times a day.
So, knowing you, Beards, and I already know the answer, you're just taking it easy, laying around the house, not doing anything, right?
So, I get home Monday night, and
after being in the hospital for 5 days.
Yeah, I thought I gotta see what it's going to be like out in the boat with all this stuff on. So I didn't have a guide trip that day, so I got out on the boat, and everything seemed pretty good. And then I've been on full-day guide trips the last 3 days in a row with these folks that come up from Washington, and I got another guide trip tomorrow. And
if nobody does it, go to Dick Beardsley Fishing. What is your website on Facebook? Anyway,
DickBeardsleyFishingGuide.com.
Yeah, because you do daily fishing reports, and you show people out. They're having a great time.
Yeah.
And so the day I'm going, geez, I wonder if Beards is out of the hospital. I click into Facebook, and here's Beards doing his fish report. He's got a big IV bandage around his arm. I can see the pick line up in his shoulder. And I thought, he's fine. He's doing good.
Oh, and done. So I'm out there on the lake, and I do this, video report every week. And I caught this nice big northern pike. I thought, well, I might as well just do a report right here. But I didn't even know that gosh dang pick line was showing like that.
I was thinking, I wonder if the infection control people would approve of all this.
I've gotten more comments on that video, not because of the fish or the report, because of this pick line I got sticking out of my
You look
arm.
like the walking wounded. Anyway, nothing will keep a good man down.
Just another story to add.
Oh, my Lord.
Yeah, just another story to add to the book.
Between you getting out running when you probably shouldn't have, or going out fishing when you probably shouldn't have, but, man, you're living life to the fullest, and that's what it's all about. Well, Beards, good report. Good report. Your spirit sounds great. We're going to try to pick up where you left off. You know, I'm going to do a quick review, and I did this a few weeks ago when you were off. You know, 1981 is what a year. And it's not over yet. Now, January, you ran Houston 212, finished second to Rogers. 3 weeks later, you go to Japan, run 212, and finish behind the So brothers. And then you go to London and win the darn thing. Well, you and Inga Simonson win it together, 211. You no sooner get back to the U.S., and it seems like now you're lining up at Grandma's, and you run 209 and win the darn thing. That record lasts, 33 years, was it? Or 37 years?
33 years,
33 years you had the course record. And so, gosh, the year must be about over for you now, right?
No!
Oh, what happened after Grandma's?
So after Grandma's, I get a phone call from the Beardsley Games over in Oslo, Norway.
Meet, yeah.
Oh, one of the biggest in the world, you know.
More world records there, I think, than any other track or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they are running crazy over in Europe, especially around Norway or in Norway. And so they wanted me to come over, and part of the Beardsley Games, they had a marathon and a half marathon. And they knew I just got done with Grandma's, but they wanted me to come over and run the half marathon, and I'd be going up against Inge Simonson again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And some of his other European good runners, and so I said, heck yeah! My grandma came from Norway, and I'd always never been there before, so I wanted to go over there. And my first wife Mary, she couldn't go. You know, I mean, I was traveling all the time, and somebody had to earn a living, you know, and so our good friend and unfortunately passed away a few years ago, Steve Benson.
Right.
So I called Steve up. I said, Steve, you want to go to Oslo? It won't cost you a nickel. Everything's paid for. But I said, the only thing is you got to run the marathon. Oh, yeah, I'll go over. So,
and the reason I didn't get this invite is I was hurt.
You were hurt because you were my first choice.
I know. All right.
So we get over there, and they put us up in a hostel. So in the summertime, they turn colleges into these places for visitors, and all the athletes from the Beardsley Games were staying at this hostel. So when they served meals, you ate it like picnic style,
sure.
And so the first morning, Steve and I are sitting down there on this picnic table, these long tables, and right across from me, and I talked to them, both of them, was Herschel Walker and Carl Lewis.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right across from me.
If only you had a cell phone in those days, you could have got a selfie.
Oh,
I know.
My gosh. And so I ran the half marathon, and the half marathon was Saturday, the marathon was on Sunday. And it was so cool. It was a very hilly course, and then you finished on the Beardsley track.
Wow.
And it was a big deal.
Was there spectators in the stadium?
Oh, in the stadium and on the course and everything. And so I was fortunate to win. I ran 103 or 104 or something, and I beat Enga, and I was fortunate to beat everybody that day. But you come on the track, and the roar of the crowd, and they're banging. The front seats sit right on the track, and they're banging on the metal sheeting around the track, and I come around the track, and I finish, and they put this gigantic wreath, like a Christmas wreath, around my neck and head. I about fell to the ground when they put that thing on me.
Yeah, when you say that, it reminds me, didn't you bump into Steve Scott and John Walker? I think you told me this story. Wasn't it on an elevator or something?
Yes.
And, now, you got to remember, Dick, you're in prime. Well, what did you weigh? 130 pounds?
Soaking wet? 130.
130, and you're 6 foot tall. Well, these guys are milers, and I remember you said you got on the elevator, and these guys are 175, 180, and they're solid. I mean, there's not an ounce of fat on them, but they got the speed and endurance. And I remember he said they looked at you, and they both started shaking their heads, and they go, "Freaking marathoners!" It was like they wanted to pick you up and just toss you in the air like a little rag doll.
I know. Oh, which they easily could have done.
Well, what a great experience, though. And how did Steve do?
Yeah.
Do you remember how he did in the marathon?
Yeah. So now, for folks that don't know who this is, Hugh Jones was from Great Britain, really good marathoner. So the following year, in '82, because I decided to run Boston and not come back and run London, Hugh ran and won London in like 2:09.
Right.
So Hugh ran the marathon over there and ran he won it, ran 2:13. Steve was second, ran I think like 2:17. But I'm telling you, Dunn, it was that during the marathon, it was a downpour. I mean, a downpour for the entire race. And Hugh Jones was wearing New Balance 730s. They were remember that
the maroon colored. Yeah.
Yes.
They were the
real
first
cushion shoe.
The first $50 shoe, if I remember right, or something like that, or 70.
And he ran in those. They were like a sponge. I mean, it was like running combat boots for him out
Just
there.
think what he would. What would he have done with super shoes on?
I know. No kidding. So Steve and I.
What a great.
We stayed a couple extra days and went for some runs in the trails out in the forest, and it was really fun.
Wow, that is fantastic. And so, all right, so now your season must be over.
Nah, it's just kind of in the middle here, guys.
All right, now let's just think about this. You've run 4 marathons. Oh, not to mention you ran like a 103 half marathon up in Minnesota there after in March, I think it was. And then you've come back. You've got 4 marathons, and you ran a 103, 104 half in Oslo. Now, is there another marathon possibly?
Well, then in between London and Grandma's, I think I came out to Sioux Falls and ran the Pepsi race.
Did a 10K.
The 10K race. So now after Oslo, I get an invite to the Stockholm Marathon.
Okay.
And it's in August. And I thought, I recovered quite quickly, obviously. And so I thought, heck yeah, we're going to Switzerland, or not Switzerland, to
Stockholm, Sweden.
To Sweden.
Yeah.
So Mary and I fly to Minneapolis. Or was she with me?
Yeah.
Maybe she wasn't.
I remember, she was with you on this trip.
Okay, that's what I thought. So we fly to Minneapolis, and then we get on the Scandinavian Airlines. They were the host for the marathon, and we flew first class.
Oh, wow.
And right in front of me is Bill Rogers, who was going over to run, and Amby Burfoot, who was going over to cover the race for Runner's World magazine. And I'm like, Bill was like, my Mickey Mantle if I was a Little League baseball player.
At this point in your guys' career, you were acquaintances.
Oh, at best.
Yeah, because you only really met him at Houston. He beat you.
Him at New York.
And you tripped him in New York. So that was your first encounter in New York. And then Houston. Right. And so you guys only interacted with each other, twice?
Exactly.
Okay, so he doesn't know. Okay.
No, and I was in awe of him, and now we've become wonderful friends.
Right.
So anyway, we're flying over, and every once in a while, Bill would turn around and start chatting to me, and I'm thinking, this is unbelievable. Bill Rogers is like wanting to talk to me. So we get over to Stockholm. It's a long flight, and they take us to a nice hotel, and Bill goes, I'm going up and taking a nap, man. He said, I'm beat, So we got up to our room. Well, I was so jacked up, being in this foreign country. And I thought, it was on a Thursday. The race was coming up on Saturday. And I thought, well, I'm just going to go for, a short little run. So, just get my legs loosened up. So, country bumpkin here. So I'm in this, and Stockholm's a huge city. And it's like Vienna. There's canals and stuff all over the place and all these streets. And I come out of the hotel. I don't write down the name of the hotel. I don't take a matchbook, with me or nothing. And I take off and I go for a run. Oh, done. I don't know where I was. I got lost. By the time I finally figured my way back, I'd done like a 14-mile run.
I remember you telling me that story.
Yeah. And so I get back to the room.
2 days before marathon.
Yeah.
Okay.
I get back to the room. I hadn't been back to the room for 5 minutes when the phone rings, and it's Bill. He goes, hey, Dick, I just woke up from a nap, and I'm going to go out for a little run. You want to go with me? And I'm thinking, Bill Rogers wants to run with me. I go, sure, Bill, I'll go. Well, I didn't tell him I'd just done a 14-miler. So
how far did you guys go?
We did an 8-miler. Oh. So I did like 22 miles 2 days before the marathon.
Okay.
The race starts, or the race is on, it starts in the Olympic Stadium. You make a lap around, and and then out onto the streets of Stockholm. And the stadium was packed. The streets were packed with people. And me and Bill are the only U.S. invited athletes there, but there's a lot of the top European runners,
right.
Some good, Japanese runners there. Well, at about 15K, we're going up this long upgrade going up a bridge. And there was still like 10 or 12 people, in the pack. And I thought, okay, there's just way too many people in this pack. So I throw in this hard surge going up this long bridge. And I mean, I threw in a hard one, and I opened up about a 200-meter lead. And I looked back, and I could see Bill kind of had started working his way up from that pack too. So I thought, okay, I use a lot of effort to open up that gap. So I thought, okay, just back it off. And as soon as Bill catches up to you, just put the hammer down on him.
Because he'll be tired, right?
Because he'll be tired, and I'll have freshened up a little bit, So Bill is just coming up behind me, and I was just getting ready to put the hammer down, and all of a sudden I hear Bill going, and he's panting like a dog. Dickie, I think we broke those guys. Maybe we ought to back it off a little bit, kind of catch our breath. And I'm thinking to myself, man, Bill wants to run with me again. Big mistake. So I backed it off, and now it's just Bill and I out there. Well, and about 30 kilometers
your new buddy.
Into the race. Yeah. This is my new best friend. 30 kilometers into the race, I hit a little bit of a bad spot, and Bill noticed it. He put the hammer down on me. He won the race. I finished second.
Well, 30K,
and I learned.
Yeah, 30K was about 18 miles, so yeah,
right.
You still had a ways to go.
But I learned a valuable lesson that day from the gray fox, the silver fox, Bill. He was such a veteran that, man, no, you don't make any deals like that. That early into a race and stuff, and it was a big mistake. Who knows what would have happened if I would have surged? Maybe I would have run out of gas somewhere down the road. But
you learn. Yeah, so, you take something away from every one of those races.
So, Don, I don't know if you know this story. So, the next morning, let's see. Oh, that night at the banquet they had.
Oh yeah, I think I know what you're going with this.
The race director comes up to me and he shakes my hand and says, "Man, you and Rogers put on a great race. Thanks for coming, blah, blah, blah." And he gives me this envelope, and I thought it felt a little puffy, but I thought a little thank you card or something, And I was wearing a sports jacket. So I put it inside the sports jacket, and after the banquet, we get up to the room, and I kind of forgot about it. I had forgot about it. Well, I take off that sports jacket, and that envelope falls on the floor. So I thought, I got to see what little card had to say, So I open it up. Inside
I remember
is 11.
I think it was 12.
Or 12.
$12,000
in crisp U.S. $100 bills.
I remember.
I am shaking like a leaf on a tree. I mean, I'd never seen that much money in my life. So the next morning, I go down. Now, this is a part I don't know if you know. The next morning, I go down to eat breakfast, and Bill happens to be down there. So I sit with Bill, and he goes, "Hey, Dick, did you get an envelope last night?" Because I had no idea this was coming.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I go, "Did I get an envelope?" I can only imagine what Bill must have got. So now remember, this Bill has traveled around the world a dozen times competing. He goes, "Dick, now when you go through customs tomorrow, don't declare it because they're going to tax you on it." I go, "Oh, okay, Bill." So the morning we're getting ready to leave. Do you know this part of the story?
No, I just remember, later you said when it kind of came down to it, the money they had it was under the table, but they had a prize set up. I think like first place got X. You were second, so you got like $8,000. Then if you ran or if you came, you got an appearance fee. That was part of that. Your place got you so much money. Your time got you so much money. So they had all these incentives built in for top performances, and yours came out to about $12,000. But no, all I know is the trip back. I don't know what happened the next day, but
okay. So the next day, I get up. I'm thinking, okay, Bill says don't declare this money. Well, where the heck am I going to put it? So I taped $12,000 up and down both of my legs.
Oh, my Lord. No, you never told me that.
No, haven't told a lot of people that. I'm not getting trouble. We might be doing this from the county prison next week.
I mean, I hope with the statute of limitations is maybe expired. It's been 40 years, but all right.
Well, so I had $12,000 taped up, and then and a baggy pair of sweatpants. So we're standing in line, and I'm sweating like a dog because I'm thinking, I'll never leave Sweden. And so about 3 people in front of us, there was a Japanese fella, and the customs people they're going through suitcases, going through his frisking. And I looked at her, I thought, okay, we're declaring this money. And so she had a bag, and so I went to the restroom, and I did got the money all out, put it in the bag, and I declared it. So IRS, I declared the money. So anyhow, we're flying back to the U.S., and you tell this part because you remember this part better than I do.
When you told me this, I laughed so hard. I said, so Beards is a nervous wreck. He's got this $12,000 of cash, and I think he said you put it on the inside pocket there of your jacket like you had before.
Yep.
But the flight's like 8 hours from Stockholm to New York, and so it's your first class, so you get up and you say, Mary, watch the jacket. And I want to go stretch my legs and get something to drink and, get a magazine. And so you're gone for like 10 minutes, walking around the plane. And then finally you come back. Mary's gone. She'd gone to the bathroom. And there's the jacket just laying there. Anybody could have said, hey, that's a nice windbreaker. And just stuff it in their bag. You never would have known who it was. And so then Mary comes back and you go, Mary, you forgot the jacket. You go, oh, yeah, I forgot. And so that was like, ulcer number 1. So then you guys, I remember you said you landed in LaGuardia. And you got to remember back in the early 80s, 1981, LaGuardia, whole New York City wasn't, I think they kind of sanitized it in the 90s or something like made it a little more friendly. But it was a rough neighborhood, and especially LaGuardia Airport. Well, you had a 2-hour layover, and they didn't have the security like they do now, and people are coming and going, and so I remember you said, man, I was so nervous I was going to get mugged. Somebody might just come over and just say, look, give me your money. So I remember you said they had those lockers where you could put 50 cents, 2 quarters in. Yes. You could put your bag or a jacket, take the key out, then you could go have supper or lunch, at a restaurant, then come back and get your stuff. It had been locked. So you took that jacket, you put it in the locker, put your 50 cents in, took the key out, you went over and sat on a bench, sat there and stared at that locker for like an hour, and then when they immediately said, okay, final call for Minneapolis, you got up, you went over, you took the jacket out, and then you headed to the gate before anybody could get a hold of you.
I know.
Well, then that's not even the end of it. I remember you said then you got on the, you landed in Minneapolis like who knows midnight or some ungodly hour, and you had to drive back to Rush City, which is what, an hour, hour and a half.
Hour and a half from the airport.
I remember you telling me, you said, all I could worry about is that damn jacket's laying in the back seat with $12,000 in it. And what if I fell asleep? Mary's asleep over here in the passenger. She's exhausted. You're jet lagged. You just ran a marathon a day and a half ago. And what if I fall asleep and we roll it and that jacket just, where's it going to end up? What if
money floating around like a snowflake?
You finally got home. You get into your house 2 or 3 in the morning. It's like now you're laying in bed thinking, "Fuck, what if somebody breaks in?" Because you never had money to worry about getting anybody stealing it from you. So I think you said you stuffed it under the mattress. So if somebody came in, they'd have to wake you up. Now the best part of the story though is, and I know my memory because I love these stories. Is you went
I know
to the
your
bank,
memory's better than me.
You went to the bank the next day. You told me, and you said, "Hey, you went up to this. You got to remember Rush City. What? It's got one bank."
Yeah, one bank.
Dennis Franzen probably owns it. No, I'm kidding.
He does now. He does now. He didn't then.
Well, it's this little bank, a little hometown bank, and then some poor gal getting minimum wage here. And I think he went up there and go, "Yeah, ma'am, I need to make a deposit." And she's like, "Oh, sure." And she flips you a deposit slip. It makes you fill it out. So you fill it out, you hand her the envelope, and you hand her the deposit slip. And I think he told me she pulled that wad of hundreds, 120, $100 bills out, and she starts thumbing them off, counting them. And you said she hadn't really got started. and her hands were shaking. And it's like she thought you were like a drug dealer or something like that. You know, like, who carries $12,000 in $100 bills and deposits them at the bank? Anyway, I don't. She probably called the IRS after you left.
Oh.
I just love that.
Mikey, okay, I've been laughing so hard, I got knots in the back of my head right now.
Well, you know, the exciting thing for me, Dick, was you were living. Now, again, I'm trying not to sound too envious, but you were kind of living the life, a lot of us runners from that generation, you know, all of us that were we got out of college, we were hitting, the road race scene was on fire. I mean, every weekend there was a road race somewhere. And most of the time you were running for a little trophy, or a lot of times I'd like merchandise, a duffel bag, or, you know, something tangible. And, you know, we always said, man, wouldn't it be cool if you could make some money? You know, like instead of giving me a $50 trophy, give me the $50, you know, sort of thing. But, you know, and so here you were out, and it was definitely, what do they call it? Living my life vicariously. Because, you know, you and I were such good friends. It was like, I always said to myself, if it's not me, I'm glad it's Dick. You know, I would have said the same thing. Right back at you. You know, and so you were living the life, and we were all watching, and it was so inspiring. And so I was healthy then, towards the end of that summer, started coming back and doing a few little races. And then the fall rolled around. And so what was next on your agenda? So you're in August in Stockholm?
Yeah, so August in Stockholm, and then
another invite comes your way. I think you said it was going to be Montreal or something like that.
Yeah. But let me back up for a second.
Oh, okay.
So after I ran 209 there at Grandma's, you know, Dennis Franzen, so one of my roommates in college at Waseca was his son Bob. And Bob and I were good friends. Well, his dad calls me up and says, Dick, and, you know, we were just getting by, you know, barely. He goes, listen, I want to move you to Rush City. He says, I've got a real cabin. It's over 100 years old, but it's in good shape. You can live there for free. It's right on the wild St. Croix River. I'll leave you a little boat. You can go across the river and run on all the trails on the Wisconsin side, and I'll give you $800 a month, and to represent my company, Plastech. So who wouldn't jump on something like that? Yeah. So we moved up to this cabin, and just absolutely, me being a woods guy, I just absolutely loved it. So New York was trying to get me to come and run their race, but Montreal was a big marathon back then, and they, again, there was no prize money, but if you were one of the top runners, there was these under-table payments, appearance money. So I worked out a lot better deal with Montreal. So I thought, man, Montreal, I've never been there. I heard it was a beautiful city, and it was a big marathon at the time. And so I was training, getting ready to run the Montreal Marathon that later, I think like in October or something, maybe early November. And I was training, and we lived way out in the bush. Well, I was on this, I finally worked my way up to this paved road up towards the little town of Rush City, and I was coming back, and I ran by this farm, and these gosh dang two big farm dogs, like one was a German Shepherd, one was like a Doberman or something. They come out of this cornfield, and I mean, they were on me, and they knocked me down. I mean, and I fell hard on my hip, and I'm bleeding, and they're like coming at me, and I start screaming at the top of my lungs. And then I was wearing a New Balance nylon running suit, and I thought they're going to come for my neck. So I zipped up the zipper, and I put my hands around my neck because I thought they're coming after me. Yeah. And they were coming and trying to nipping at me and stuff. And I have never yelled so loud in my life. And nobody from the farmhouse came out. I'm laying in the middle of this county road, screaming my head off. And the dogs finally kind of backed off. You know how when you have a dog, sometimes they look at you kind of inquisitively. Yeah. And all of a sudden those dogs, I'm screaming, and their heads are like going like this. Like, what's this guy doing? All he did was want to chew on his bony body, So I finally got up. And I kind of jogged back home. And, Dunn, you've known me a long time. Mm-hmm. I can get along with a grizzly bear, but I was mad. I was ready to get my own shotgun and go back. Oh, yeah. And I love dogs. And take care of a couple dogs. But I simmered down, and I did call the sheriff's department and to let them know what happened, and they went out and talked to him and didn't, they didn't do anything. But I ran a race like that following weekend over in Grantsburg, Wisconsin, which is right across the river. They had a little 5-miler, and I ran like 24 minutes or something. But then the next morning, I could hardly get out of bed. And anyhow, long story short, I ended up having to go down to the cities like 3 times a week. And I had something wrong with my hip and back and stuff. And I mean, I could hardly walk. And so I ended up having to pull out of Montreal because I couldn't run for like 2 weeks or something like that. And I thought, I don't want to go into Montreal just for three-quarter shape. Right. Yeah, just to run just
to get the money.
So I bailed.
I remember, and that, it made the news about the dog attack. And yeah, your low back was messed up where you couldn't really race. You could kind of run, but then it would hurt, so you had to take time off. And so, yeah, I mean, it was kind of a scary time, because...
It was.
And yet, sometimes maybe things happen for a reason, silver lining. And so, I just remember shortly thereafter, you and Mary, I don't know, out of the generosity of your hearts, said, let's have for lack of a better word, a party.
Yeah. And done. And part of it was we wanted to do that for everybody had been so helpful in getting me to that level of running,
Right.
And because you can't be successful by yourself, and you and Karen and then a lot of guys that from the Minneapolis, St. Paul area that were good runners that I trained with a little bit once in a while and stuff, and everybody was so supportive and excited. I mean, they were I don't want to say they were trying to live their dream through
we
mine
were,
because it was happening, and I thought so we had the big old pig roast.
I still have the invitation. I'll put it up onto our extras.
No, you don't.
I have the invitation.
You are a
pack rat.
Clutterbug. Pack rat.
I actually looked at the stamp. It was like 21 cents. I should tell people how long ago.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, I got it. We got this written invitation in the mail. It's a little pig on the front of it. And it says pig roast. And then you open it up and it gives the date, time, your guys' address. So, I mean, Karen and I, there was no doubt. We headed up there. And, stayed at the cabin with you guys. And I just remember some of the local, I don't know who these guys, buddies of yours, they were local yokels, I'd call them. And they know how to roast a pig. They dig a pit.
Oh, yeah.
They get a big fire going underground. They fill it up with, rocks. And then they throw this, I don't know how, they put a pig in there, and then they covered it.
And we're not just talking like a pork shoulder. We're talking like a 300-pound.
And then
it was a pig.
Dirt all over
you don't know this. It was the pig that Mary and I were raising on the. We raised this pig out behind the cabin out in the woods there, and we were eating that pig that day.
This reminds me of your little pig song that you sing at Duluth every once in a while.
Exactly.
Well, I just remember we were there the day before, and you guys were up at like 4 a.m. out there. They were out there freaking checking the temperature of the pit and all this.
Oh, they did great.
Oh, that thing cooked for it was like 12 to 24 hours.
Oh, it was.
Underground. And eventually they dig the dang thing up, uncover it. I'm thinking, I'm not going to eat this pig. It's going to be covered with dirt. But no, they knew what they were doing. And then the people started showing up. And I just remembered, one of my highlights, hanging out with you and staying at the cabin. But who should show up but Ron Dawes? And you mentioned that you had studied he'd read his book, his biography, it
was part of
done.
He made, for those of you who don't know, Ron grew up here in Minnesota, and he made the 1968 Olympic marathon team. And he was not a super talented runner, but he was a worker.
Yeah.
And when he made the team, afterwards he made
wrote a book
called Self-Made Olympian.
Yeah.
And I bought that book, and in between South Dakota State and before I got hooked up with Coach Squires, I kind of took a little bit of everything I'd learned up to that point, and then did a lot of Ron's workouts, and it was amazing. I had that book forever. You know where it's at now, though, don't you?
No.
Out in Brookings at Bob's library.
The library. Well, I was going to say,
I gave that to him.
Ron Dawes came down year after year and would win the damn Jack 15. Steve Hogue would come. And you got to remember, the late 60s, early 70s, how many road races were there you know, until Frank Shorter won the marathon in Munich, and then all at once road racing kind of took off on a local level.
Right.
But there were hard to find races, and the Jack 15 had been around. It's one of the oldest in the Midwest. Ron Dawes, I'm pretty sure, had the course record until you came along and broke it. And I think he was a 3 or 4 time winner of the Jack 15. And I never got to meet the guy other than at your pig roast. And, you know, I'm trying to say this complimentary. I don't want to sound negative. He had an air about him of he was a special dude. He was a celebrity.
Right.
You know, you've never come across me as like a celebrity. Sorry, Dick.
No,
you're not a celebrity. But he kind of carried himself, and he was. I mean, hey, the guy, you know, self-made Olympian and an outstanding athlete. And at the time, he was married to Lorraine Moeller. And Lorraine Moeller was with him that day. And I remember he wore this jacket. I'm not kidding. I think it had feathers. I remember, it was like, man, that jacket's a one of a kind. I mean, you have to have a lot of guts just to wear that damn thing. But he showed up there, and all the other runners, I mean, Al Zetterlund and Steve Benson, I think Joe Bros, I wish I would have, I hope you kept a book. Who else showed up? But it was the who's who of kind of Minnesota, Midwest, mostly Minnesota runners, because you invited all your friends from Minnesota that you could think of. And to come to this pig roast.
That was something.
Oh, it was a great day, and it's one that I'll never forget. And then I just remember the next morning, you and I got in that little boat, went across, and did that 20-miler. That Coach Squires was 6 minutes kind of cruise, and then 1 minute, I don't know if you call it tempo or hard, and then 6 minutes. I just remembered I was nervous because I was getting fit again. I thought, damn, if Beards loses me out in the woods, I'll be out there they'll find my remains. The buzzards will be circling my remains out there.
And where we ran, we were out in the middle of nowhere.
We never saw a living being, never saw a paved road. And it was so much fun because it was just trails through the woods. Lucky you knew them fairly well and how to get us back and make it a 20-miler. But that was a great time. So that kind of, you know, I kind of think that wrapped up 81, the fall. You were recovering from this accident. It wasn't really an accident. And if I remember right, at the pig roast, a lot of people were asking you about your accident or this attack, this dog attack. And I don't know if it was you or one of your neighbors said, yeah, don't worry about those. So-and-so took care of those dogs. And it sounded like, and I'm not saying I would not endorse this, but whenever you have a dog I got attacked once by a dog out by Karen's folks. I ran around the section doing a 4-mile run, and I'm at the farthest point of this run, and a Great Dane. I am not kidding you. I've never seen a dog as big as a Great Dane.
They're huge.
We
put a saddle on
tearing around this house, and there's a fence, and I'm thinking, damn, I sure hope that dog can't jump that fence. And you're running, so you're not like you're riding a bike or you're flying by. That dog, he knew right where it was. There was a hole under the fence, and that big freaking dog got himself through that hole, and he came up out of the ditch.
Oh my gosh!
And I'm looking, I'm thinking, there's no way I can outrun this guy. And so I turned and I faced him, kind of like, I thought, well, I'm not going to let him grab me from behind and take me down. So I faced the dog. I'm at a dead stop. Now usually I'll reach down to like pick up a rock, and when they see you do that, they kind of like, whoa. Yeah, they'll back off.
Right.
It's like, wait a minute. This guy might have just picked up a weapon, or something. It makes them nervous. I didn't have time. I'm kind of thinking, oh shit.
My.
Beards, that Great Dane, it lunged at me, and all I saw was teeth.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, and instinct, I'm screaming.
Right.
And I don't know if you ever remember, like in football, the punter, like when they hike the ball to the guy.
Right.
Beards, I don't know. I had enough room, and I kicked that dog right in the neck.
Oh my God.
I mean, with all the force I could muster, like kicking a football, like punting a football. Beards,
you got one chance.
Beards, I figured this is my only chance. And it was like kicking a goddamn tree stump. I mean, I hit the dog, and for every action there's opposite and equal. I went backwards. Overhead, I went backwards down the ditch, landed right on my butt, and I thought, I'm dead. I'm dead. That dog's going to jump on me and bite me in the neck. So as I hit, and I was a PE major, and I had to take gymnastics. I hit on my butt. I kept my momentum, and I did a somersault, a backward somersault, and I jumped up onto my feet. I'm thinking, I'm not going down without a fight, baby. And because I'm into the adrenaline, I'm just like, holy shit, I'm gonna die. And the dog's standing there just like your dog, and he kind of like stopped. And he's like, I don't know, the look in my eyes or the scream, and I like to think my kick might have had a little subtle effect. All at once, the dog turns around and runs back into his property. And I limp up out of that ditch. And I'm right across the house, and I mean, the dog was going nuts. I'm screaming. There's cars parked in the driveway there.
Oh.
And I'm like, and I'm thinking, well, somebody's got to come out. Nothing.
Right.
I start jogging. I could barely run. I had a big bruise on my butt. Right?
I bet.
And I kind of like you. I kind of jogged home. I was livid. I mean, I got back, I think I asked Karen and Verla and Darlene if they had a freaking shotgun. So I was going to go back, and I said, and I wasn't going to go shoot it, but I said, do you know, and I told them, they go, yeah, those are like the Andersons or something. And I got the goddamn phone book out, rural, Spencer, Langdon, and I found the Andersons, and they go, yeah, that's
You did?
I called them up. And I said,
no
hey,
way.
Oh, Beards, I said, look, I called them up and they answered the phone. They go, hello. And I go, hey, is this so-and-so Anderson? Yeah. And I said, do you guys have a dog, a Great Dane? Yeah, we do. I just ran by your house and your dog attacked me. Oh, we were home. We didn't hear nothing. I go, you didn't hear nothing. So the dog was going berserk. I was screaming my head off. I said, the dog knocked me into the ditch. And they go, oh, well, geez, I'm sorry. And I go, look. They go, well, I go, what if I would have been a kid, like on a bike or something like that? She goes, and you could hear the lady, she goes, well, do you have to run by here?
Oh, my gosh.
Do I have to run by here? I go, I run everywhere I want. I mean, it's not like, oh, I can't run down that road. There's a dog. Well, we usually know which roads not to run down. And I said, and I just remembered, I said, look, if you don't do something about that dog, somebody will. Like, I kind of wanted a veiled threat. And I just hung up the phone. And, now I look back, and it was probably, I just wanted the people to know, look, that dog ears could hurt somebody. And so, I think every runner who's maybe listening to this or cyclist has more than one dog story they could share with us. But it's the bane of running, yeah.
Your dog story is way better than mine. But you know what? We're past this, not by much, but on some other podcast, we'll go back and I'll tell the wiener dog story.
Oh, that's a great. We will. We'll save that one.
Yeah.
Beards. Let's. It's been what a 1981. I tell you, if we could go back.
Well, done. Time out here.
What?
That wasn't so. I remember then I went to, I think somewhere in Ohio. They had the national 25K championship.
No way, really.
Yeah, in like early November, I think it was.
I'm trying to think where that would have been. Yeah. Okay.
Somewhere in
Ohio, yeah. Toledo?
Or maybe Columbus, I think. Okay. Somewhere in Ohio. It was a national 25K championship, and I thought, well, that'll be my last race of the year. Well, I shouldn't have gone. Randy Thomas won it that day, set an American record. I finished, I don't know how many minutes behind him, and I got done, and I was mentally and physically spent.
Well,
and I remember taking like the next few weeks and just jogging for 4 or 5 miles a day to kind of get the mojo back.
Well, with Beards, after the year, the year you had done was Herculean or something like that. It's probably off the charts. I'd really question, if anybody goes back and can think of 5 world-class marathons in less than a 12-month period. Not
Crazy.
To mention the 10Ks, the half marathons, and all that thrown in there.
Right.
And not to mention the 18-mile runs the day before the marathon or whatever.
Exactly.
Or 2 days before. And so the fact that you're kind of running out of gas is not surprising. But I think then that kind of gave you a chance to sit back, and I know you and Coach Squires came up with a plan, I think, for 1982.
Yes.
We'll save it for the next episode, bud.
Absolutely. Dad, it was so great getting back in touch with you.
And it's so good to see your feel. I kind of was, I knew you were sick the last couple of weeks because, we had talked about doing a podcast, even if not from the hospital bed necessarily. But I know you had been home a few days, but man, you were feeling punky. And I kind of, when Karen goes, you guys doing your podcast? You go, Dick doesn't feel good. I worry because Dick's usually what you see here right now. He's usually pretty excitable and on fire. And so when you don't have the fire, I know that's not a good sign. But I'm glad to see you're back.
Don, the other day when I was still in the hospital and you and Karen were heading out to your daughter Callie's place, and you had texted me and says, Beards, you want to chat?
Yeah.
And I never get headaches.
No,
and
I know.
I was in the hospital. I was feeling terrible. I had a terrible headache. I had a fever. I'm thinking, I'm thinking, and you text me back, every time I get a bad headache, I think I got a brain tumor.
A tumor.
Well, a tumor. And I thought, the infection is setting in. And then by the next morning, I was.
It was probably what they gave you for your surgery, but whatever.
Yeah, probably. But hey, we want to thank everybody for listening. And if you have any questions for Dunn and myself or comments about the show, you can sure contact us directly on our website at beardsanddunpod.com or leave us a comment on our Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter, all at Beards and Dunn Pod.
Yeah. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, hit the like, comment, subscribe. And if you enjoy the podcast, we do have some merchandise out there. Beards, I just ordered a bunch. I got a bunch of stickers. I'm going to be handing out stickers to all of our friends in North Carolina so they can promote our endeavors here. But thanks again for everybody who's listening. And Beards, have a great day, bud.
Hey, you too. We'll see you next week, Mikey.
Sounds great. Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.